Hey, it's Joe with RevZilla coming to you from my personal garage today. Today we're going to check out how to change a motorcycle battery using our Harley Sportster. So reasons you may consider changing your battery in your bike is if you notice that it's cranking a bit slower than normal, or maybe at idle your lights are a bit dim and you notice when you rev the bike up they come up a little bit brighter, or there's a good chance that the battery's just old. You may not remember the last time you put a new battery in it, or by chance if maybe when you take it off the battery charger it's still pretty weak. So that's showing that the battery's not holding a charge. So my best advice is really to make sure you tackle this as a preventative maintenance job versus an emergency roadside fix. It's a lot easier to change your battery when you're expecting it versus when you're out on a trip with your buddies. After this video, you'll be able to tackle this job on your own. So the first step in selecting the correct battery for your bike would be to go to RevZilla.com and enter your bike's info into the bike finder. Once you click batteries and then exact fit options, you still may see a variety of battery options available for your bike. So I have a few examples here of the different types that you may see, and I'm going to explain some pros and cons real quick of each type. So first up, we're going to start with a conventional style battery. So these are typically very inexpensive, but they most of the time don't include the acid. So you'll need to buy that separately, maybe at a local auto parts store, or have the battery filled at your local motorcycle shop. The other thing to worry about is that it's a ventilated battery, so you need to make sure that you run the vent tube down to the bottom of the bike to prevent any kind of acid leaks onto the finish of your bike. I'll show you a bad example on my old Yamaha in a minute. The next step up from that would be the maintenance free. So these are typically the most common option. These are available for a ton of different bikes. So what's cool about these is they do include the acid. All you need to do is put the acid pack on top of the battery after you peel the foil off, and it'll dump the acid in, and then you just put the cap on, throw it on a trickle charger for a few hours, and then you'll never have to fool with it again until it's time to replace. Up from that would be the factory activated option. So again, a little bit more expensive to step up into this. This is typically the most expensive lead acid style battery available, but you just take it out of the box, it's already charged, no acid, no fooling around, just throw it in the bike and you're ready to rip. Up from that would be a lithium ion battery. They're typically even more expensive than these, but if weight savings is the name of the game, say if you're on a sport bike, you're building a track bike, or also for choppers, for custom bikes, they pack a hell of a punch for the size of them. So you'll also find them in dirt bikes too. My KTM has one from the factory. So again, where weight savings is critical, a lithium ion is a great option. The only really downside to those other than the price would be that you do need a specific charger for a lithium ion. But since the maintenance-free battery is typically the most popular option, I'm going to go through the steps that you'll take to get the battery ready when you take it out of the box before you throw it in your bike. So any maintenance-free battery that you pick up is going to come with its own set of instructions. Be sure to read those before you begin. What I'm going to show you here is just a general overview as to what to expect after you take it out of the box and before you put it in the bike. This particular battery here, I'm getting ready for a different bike. We're not going to use this one in the Sportster, but this is generally what you're going to be up against with any maintenance-free battery for any bike, regardless of the size. First, you're going to need to find a flat surface to put the battery on, maybe a workbench or the floor of your shop, because you're going to need to push down on the acid pack. So you need to be sure to find a flat, sturdy spot. Then the next step after that will be to pull the foil off the top of the battery. That's going to reveal the little piercing tips on the top of each battery cell itself, which is going to pierce the foil in the battery pack when you put it on. So the black cap that you're going to pull off the top of the acid pack here will be used to cap the battery at the end. Put this aside. Don't worry though, because after you pull this black cap off the acid pack itself, there are foil covers on each cell, so you're not exposing the acid to the air at that point. Then the next step after that will be to put the acid pack down over the holes in the battery cells themselves, and then push it down nice and firm so that the little spikes that are on the battery cells will puncture the foil and allow the electrolyte to flow into the battery. Some of you may find that the acid may not be flowing out of one of the containers into the battery cell itself. So what you could do is just tap it a bit, and then you'll see the bubbles start to flow, and then the acid will flow into the battery itself. You don't want to pull the acid pack out or squeeze it or anything like that, because obviously you don't want battery acid to go anywhere other than the battery cell it's intended to go in. Now at that point, you're going to let the battery sit. This particular one calls for about 20 minutes, but be sure to look at the instructions that came with the battery to let you know how long the battery needs to sit like that to activate. After that time period is up, you'll pull the empty acid pack off, and then you'll add that black cap back to the battery top itself and push it down nice and firm so it's flush. So it will take a little bit of work. Usually they're a bit tough to put on because they're designed to never come off again. And at that point, you're going to need to put the battery on a charger. So most motorcyclists already have a battery tender, which is a great way to charge up a new battery. Typically, a motorcycle shop may have a more advanced charger to use, but the principle is the same. Really, you just want to be careful not to overcharge the battery. You don't want to charge it too quickly, and you don't want to leave it on the charger for too long. So what's cool about a battery tender or that style of charger is that it's very low amps, and typically when the battery comes all the way up to full voltage, it'll put itself in a safe mode, so you don't need to worry about overcharging the battery. So this particular battery itself says you could charge it at 0.9 amps for 5 hours, or all the way up to 4 amps for an hour as a quick charge. Now, my battery tender here shows that it charges at 1.25 amps. So that's a really safe, slow trickle charge way to bring this battery up to full charge. So all I'll need to do now is hook the battery tender up to the battery and let it sit for a while until it's completely charged. Then it'll be ready to be installed on the bike. All right, so I'm going to share a quick battery tip with you folks. This has saved me a lot of time and struggles. An old timer taught me this trick. So typically what you'll find is when you go to put the nut into the battery like that, you know, I'm just using it on top as an example, you'll find that it wants to walk away from the bolt, you know. So when you have the ring terminals on the bolt, it's a really hard time to get it to get into the threads there. So what I do is I cut some of this tubing, you know, just real quick. This is some battery vent tubing or carburetor overflow tubing, and just cut a couple little shims like that, just little chunks of tubing. So what I do is I put that behind the nut inside the top of the battery terminal. So, you know, that works this way vertically, and it also works horizontally, obviously. I might get my fingers out of the way so you can see. But what that does is helps hold the nut against the edge of the terminal so that it's easier for the threads to get started once you have the rings on there. And then that little piece of tubing just lives there until you're ready to throw the battery away or go take it to the recycler, of course. If you're really particular and you don't have any other tubing, you can rescue that with a little pick or a screwdriver, but I generally just cut a new piece. That's just a quick tip to hopefully save you guys a little bit of a headache. So now it's time to finally replace the battery in our Sportster. We decided to go with the factory activated option, so I'll be able to pull it right out of the box and throw it in our bike. Now, batteries are located in all sorts of different places dependent upon your motorcycle, so make sure you check your owner's manual to find out how to access your battery and remove it. For our Sportster, it calls for removal of this side panel and the seat. Step 2 is removal of the battery cables from the terminals on the battery. First, you want to take the negative cable off and then the positive cable. Now's a good time to check the eyelets on the end of your battery cables and make sure they're clean and corrosion free. Our bike here has pretty low miles and it stays indoors, so our cables are clean here. But typically on older bikes that see a lot of miles, I prefer to use some of my wife's old nail files to take off any corrosion. Spurgeon says he likes to use Coca-Cola, so pick your poison on that one. So step 3 will be actually removing the battery from the motorcycle. Some batteries come straight up, some batteries come out the side, but generally there will be some sort of strap or hold down holding that battery in place. So you want to take that off and clear the path for the battery to be able to come out of the bike. Once it's out of the bike, then you could just throw it in that box that your new battery came in and take it for recycling. Step 4 is inserting the new battery into your bike. Now's a good time to consider adding any kind of accessory, pigtail, or battery lead to your battery. If you want to add a heated gear lead or a battery tender lead or maybe an accessory for your GPS to charge it while you're riding the bike, now's a good time to consider that since you're already right there. So once you figure out what kind of accessory you're going to add to the battery, then you're going to hook up the positive cable first and then the negative cable. And then after that, any kind of battery strap or hold down that holds the battery into the bike. So the final step of replacing your battery is a quick test. Generally at this point, once I have the new battery in the bike but I don't have any of the other parts back on, I like to see if it starts and make sure everything's okay. This prevents double work in case there's an issue with it starting that may show that there's a different electrical issue with the motorcycle. So I like to give the bike a quick fire up, make sure everything is cool, shut it down, then you could put the side panel, the seat, or whatever else back on, and then it's time to go for a ride. Now you're ready to tackle the riding season with the confidence that your bike's not going to leave you stranded on the side of the road. If you have any questions about picking out a battery for your bike or any kind of other parts or accessories or gear, don't hesitate to reach out to one of our gear geeks at 877-792-9455 or shoot an email over to cs@revzilla.com. Thanks for watching our video today about how to change a motorcycle battery. I'm Joe, and I'll see you next time.